You mentioned that Genghis Khan's childhood, Temujin, was marked by extreme tribal violence. Can you describe sort of the state of affairs in the steppe? How much violence is there? How much kidnapping is there?
The story of Temujin is not a unique story for that time. Now, as an isolated family of outcasts, of course, he's not participating in the various feuds and the raids of the people around him, but they are constantly raiding in the winter. And for women and for horses and for any kind of valuables that they can find, it's almost like their way of getting trade goods from China, that one group raids the other in order to find out whatever they have for textiles or for metal. Mongols produce nothing. They they could produce felt to make their tents, but they were not craftsmen. And so they had to get these items from somewhere, and it was through raiding. And so even in the genealogy of Temujin, you see going back generation after generation of women having been kidnapped, children born who are not necessarily the father's child, and it's unclear who the father was. And all of these issues go back for a long time. Later, Genghis Khan will realize, once he becomes Genghis Khan, he will realize that the true source of most of the feuding on the steppe is over women. And later, he will outlaw the kidnapping of women and the sale of women, in part not only because of what had happened to his mother, but what happened to him next in his life.
And this is one of the things you talk about. This, in some ways, the love story with his wife was her kidnapping was the defining. If you could point to one place where Genghis Khan, the conqueror, was created, it's that point.
Yes.
His wife being kidnapped. Can you describe, first of all, his love for this woman and what that means, and what the kidnapping of her meant?
At age 16, Bertha, the girl he had met when he was 8 years old and she was 9, she's now 17, and she and her mother come. It's hard to even imagine what it was like for this 16-year-old boy who has suffered these indignities of life in every way that you can imagine. And suddenly, here is the love of his life who's going to be living with him, making him happy. He has somebody who loves him. It's not just his mother running around getting food and trying to feed the 5 children and plus the other wife and her 2 children. No, he has somebody who loves him. And it's all the excitement that you can imagine, with the fire in the eyes and the excitement. And then it only lasts a few months. And so there they are. And there's a lady visiting them. We don't know exactly who she is, but just they called her grandmother Kawakchin. Granny Kawakchin is there. And Granny Kawakchin is sleeping, of course, on the floor of the ger, the tent. And early in the morning, she feels the vibrations in the earth. And she knows that horsemen are coming. She rouses the family. And Mother Erlun is in charge. Mother Erlun is still in charge, even though Temujin is now married. She puts all of her children on a horse. She takes the baby girl, Temulin, in her own lap. She has one extra horse, but she won't take Bersta because she knows, she doesn't know who the men are. She has no idea, but they're coming in the dark. They're coming for a woman. They know there's a girl there. This family of outcasts has acquired a wife, and they know that they're coming for that. And so she leaves Xochitl, the other wife. She leaves this old lady, Granny Kawakchin, who actually has her own cart, and she leaves Bersta. They pile into Granny's cart, and it's only an ox to pull it, so they don't get too far before the attackers get there. But Mother Erlun is right. She's able to get her children off to the mountain, into Burkhan Khaldun, to the mountainside, away from them, because the men are so focused on this cart and finding out how many women are in there and who they are and all. So Mother Erlun saved her family, but at a cost. Suddenly, Temujin realizes He has obeyed his mother, but he's lost the most important thing in his life. And I do think this is the defining moment of his life. The story began back when his mother was kidnapped, but now the kidnapping of his wife, I think, is to define what will he do? What should he do? What can he do? Is he going to just resign himself to it? Is he going to go out look for another wife? And he decides that life is not worth living without Bertha. He has found something good in this life, and if he has to die trying to get her back, he will die trying to get her back.
And this is the early steps of the military genius born, because in order to get her back requires an actual organization of troops.
He needs allies. He goes to a man who ruled the Karyat people in central Mongolia, kind of on the Tol River, about where the capital Ulaanbaatar is today. He goes there because that Wang Han is his name, or Torgal Han. He goes there because Wang Han had been the lord over his father at one point, and his father had gone on raids for him. And so he went there. And actually, he took a gift. That's because Bertha's mother had brought a sable coat as a gift for Mother Erlun at that time of the marriage. So he took the coat, and he took it, and he gave it as a gift to Wang Han and asked for his help. And Wang Han said yes. And he said, I will send some troops, but we need more. And you need to ask Jamaka. You need to ask him to come also. He said, I will send a message to him to get troops.
You have to tell the story of Jamaka, because the story of Genghis Khan is one of people abandoning him, being disloyal, and here is a person who's not of his kin, but becomes his, in a way, brother, in a way, loyal, and as you've described, he's both the best thing to has happened to Genghis Khan and one of the biggest challenges in the later years
Yes.
to Genghis Khan. So who was Jamaka?
Jamaka was a boy about the same age as Temujin, and his family had winter camp close to where Mother Erlun was living with her children. And so the two boys met during the winter time. In fact, they both claimed descent from the same woman about 4 generations earlier, or 5, it's a little unclear. She was an Urihanghai woman who herself was kidnapped. And actually, Jamaka was the descendant of her from the fact that she was pregnant at the moment of kidnapping. And then Temujin is descended from her through the new kidnapper, Botanchar, his ancestor. So they're both as the Mongols would say, from the same womb. They come from the same historic origin. However, their lives were similar in that both lost their fathers very early, but Jamaka also lost a mother. So he grew up in the household of his grandfather. He had no siblings. Unlike Temujin, with a whole household of siblings. He grew up with his grandfather, and his grandfather had several wives, so he grew up with a bunch of old women, which later he said he thought was an influence on his life. But the two boys meet. So they come from different backgrounds, and Jamaka is not as deprived by any means as the life of Temujin, but he has a certain emotional deprivation, I think, having not had mother, father, siblings, and he lives with these old people. The two boys meet, they become good friends playing on the ice. And so they're playing on the ice, and then very early on, I think when they're about 10 or 11 years old, they decide to make a pact. It's called becoming anda. Anda is more than a friend. A friend is like nukhr in the language, and there are several different types of friendship, but anda is a friendship that's beyond a friendship. It's something for life. And they swore that they would be there forever to protect each other, to help each other in every moment. And they exchanged knuckle bones. So each one of them had the knuckle bone of a roebuck, a deer. Knuckle bones are used in these games that they play, but it's also used to forecast the future. You can roll them around and all. And it's very strange. On the ice, I will say, in the wintertime in Mongolia, it can be up to 50 degrees below zero. And it doesn't really matter at that point whether it's even Celsius or Fahrenheit or what it is. But you slide something across the ice and it's just absolutely smooth like silk, and it goes on for a long way. And if you put your ear down to the ice, you hear this celestial sound that is unlike any sound on the earth. It's just like the angels are singing under the ice. So once they've sworn this relationship of Anda, then a couple years later, they swear it again, but this time they're slightly older boys and they have bows and arrows. And so they exchange arrows with each other. In fact, the text is very specific that Jamaka took the horn, cut it off of a 2-year-old calf, and he whittled it down, and then he drilled a hole into it in order to make a whistling arrow, which is used for several purposes among the Mongols. It's used for signals, for one thing, from one person to another. But also when you're hunting, if you want to move the animal in a certain direction, you send a whistling arrow in the opposite direction to make the animal move. So it had a lot of uses. So the boys had exchanged roebuck knuckles. This time they exchanged. And so they had been close friends. And Wang Han said, okay, Jamaka should raise some troops and go with you. And he did. So the three set out, some troops from Wang Han. He himself did not go, he was too old, but he sent some troops, and then Jamaka and his troops, and then basically just Temujin and his family. He just had his brothers, that's all. They set off to find the Merkit people up the Seleng River, which flows into Siberia and on into Lake Baikal. They had to go through some extremely rough territory. And you see in this episode, though, Jamaka is already a little bit fierce without necessarily thinking it through carefully. He gives this long speech about all the things they're going to do to the Merkit people. We're going to jump through the tunnel, the smoke hole in the top of the gear. We're going to jump in there and we're going to kill them all. We're going to kill the men and the women and the children. We will destroy these people forever. He has an extremely militant rhetoric, at least. And he's also rather critical of the other people. Wang Han's people came late, and he gave them this long lecture about, we are Mongols, and if we give our word is our promise forever. And rain or sleet or snow, it doesn't matter, we be there on time. So he's dressing down his superiors. He's very aggressive, but he's very helpful. So these troops, they move in on the Merkit camp. They also come in at night. And so there's a small amount of warning because some men are out hunting sables, the Merkit men, and they race back to the camp and they tell the people, and the people are getting ready to get out as fast as possible. So Bertha has no idea who's coming. She doesn't want to be kidnapped again. It's just somebody. So she and the grandmother go auction again, and Xochitl, they're loaded into a cart to go away. So Temujin comes in, and there's a full moon that night, so they could see what they're doing. And he's really searching for her. He's not paying too much attention to the battle. And he's calling for her, and she hears his voice. She knows who it is. She jumps off the cart, and she runs to him. And they're reunited, and he grabs her, embraces her, and then he said, this is the goal. This is why we are here. We don't need anything else. He was very clear about that.
And that was his first full-on military engagement.
Yes, aside from the things, yes, his first full-on military engagement.